Hello, 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 and welcome to episode 2 of FPL Journey to 10K, the podcasting series that looks to get us 100,000 in the world players up to a finish of 10,000 using FPL tools. And my co-host here, top 5 player in the world, Matt, as my guidance and my mentor. Matt, how are you? Just less than 48 hours to go. Excited?
Hey, Dave. Yeah, all good, all good, all good. I have to say, feeling a bit of pressure, actually. I think last time we spoke, I haven't really glanced at FPL. Like, I feel like I'm getting a bit of information overload now. I feel like I'm overthinking things a little bit. So I'm looking forward to the deadline because, like, it's just done. The team is set. There's no tinkering. I think I'll be sharing like 4 drafts later, right? So I'm kind of keen for it just to start and yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Though. I am looking forward to it. So I think that there's mostly set. There's a few. We'll talk about it later. There's a few kind of like players around the edges that I've got a few kind of final questions around. But yeah, looking forward to it. How are you set? You all good?
Yeah, not far off. Again, a couple of tinkers. I think after news today of certain goalkeepers moving, might open up some nice options. But I'm about 90% there. I think maybe there's the odd player or two which we'll come on to. Arsenal, Man United attacking options, Brighton attacking options is really starting to wind me up. Just knowing who to go for, but we'll discuss that in a little while. But yeah, it should. I'm looking forward to it again. Same as you, just play the game properly. Once game week 1 is open and up and running, out the way, and it's 1 transfer a week rather than a potential 15. It's just a little bit more enjoyable. Same as you, I've tried to kind of stay away from the templates, but I know my team's templates, so it's But I suppose they're the template for a reason, right?
Don't fight it. Don't fight it. I think I said it last week, but like if someone had a tool where you could just get rid of the percentage ownership on the FPL side, it would make everyone's lives a lot easier. Pick your players because they're good players, right? And don't think you're special, right? Yeah. Like everyone's going to think this is a sensible option. So I think if you look to my team, I think it's probably got a lot of obvious picks with 1 or 2 like kind of random players. I wouldn't worry about that, mate. I wouldn't fight it for the sake of it. And I think probably this year that'll be one of the big things for both of us, just to kind of keep hold us each other to account. Because I know last year a few times I was pushing for differentials. I know you were doing it week on week, is pushing for those like big differentials, right? So the template is fine. Like it's not a dirty word. It's not a dirty word.
And before we kind of move on and start going into some of the big topics, first time you've heard the theme tune. What are your thoughts?
I mean, you composed that yourself as well.
I wish I could say I did. I might have had a little help.
That's impressive, man. We kind of said we start with humble beginnings. Look at this. Look at all these assets we're bringing. Like episode 2 already.
It's all right. You still got my spare bed in the background. We haven't got that. We haven't pushed that much. But yeah, we'll dive in. So episode 2, as I say, is it's called Game Week 1. Ready, steady, go, and it's going to be likely our last stream before Game Week 1 is live, and we catch up next week to look at results and moving on to potential transfers for Game Week 2. But I know a big thing we spoke about in episode 1 was the fixture ticker, so I just thought it'd be good to share some graphics on the teams that not just in general. I think what I like here that we've got is a differential. So it's teams that should in theory be keeping clean sheets and have good fixtures from a defense point of view, but then also the teams that have good fixtures for their attacking options. So interestingly, I'm a Liverpool fan, but defensive-wise, number 4 don't even appear in the attacking options. Oh, no, we do, number 8. So, I know we kind of we'll discuss it in a little bit whether Trent and Salah and any other premiums are on your minds. But is this how you do it? Do you look at the 2 different types of fixture list, or do you just amalgamate?
A bit of both. I think it's helpful to differentiate, right? Because I think there's some teams that I think Liverpool would be a good example, right? So Liverpool, if you're playing against Liverpool, the chance of getting a clean sheet are pretty limited. But the chances, at least last year, of scoring against them is a lot higher, right? So I think that there's definitely some teams that are kind of like better from a defensive point of view. Some are better from an attacking point of view for us. So I think it's always good to kind of differentiate for sure. And I think kind of the likes of Liverpool being quite low on these kind of tickers is one of the reasons why none of my drafts have any Liverpool players, just because of the price points. But like the fixtures, I think there's just a lot of kind of stronger teams. And like if you look at, there's a lot of similarities actually, the way that kind of, both from a defensive point of view, attacking point of view, same teams are looking the strongest. And I think the 1 to 5, the 1 to 6 kind of game weeks windows is a good one when you're planning your game week 1 team, because you do want to make a big impact from the beginning. You don't have to do too long a horizon when you're planning. So this is a good window. But like, it's got your Brightons, it's got your Man Cities, your Chelseas, your Arsenals. They, to a lesser extent, kind of Manchester United, they appear kind of like in both tickers and appear pretty strong. So the lion's share of your team should have an over representation from these teams.
Yeah,
and I think it's probably safe to say for both of us that is the case. So I think that's always a good sense check.
It is, yeah, and it kind of comes on to the next topic. So I think we both said last week, the big thing for us is the fixtures. That's kind of where we get our players from. And there's a few things that I've been thinking. So on my mind, Arsenal and United, nice fixtures, both from an attacking point of view, especially in those first 3 games. So if I've only got space for 2 attackers from one and 1 attacker from the other, what's the best way to do it? 2 Arsenal attackers or 2 United attackers? So I've got some stats for us to look at there. As I mentioned earlier, Brighton are absolutely doing my head in. There's too many players. It's which one? I know last week we spoke about it a little bit, mainly March Matoma comparison, but there's so many more options that they've got. So it's like, well, which one do you pick? Which one's the best option? Or do you just dodge them all together? So again, we'll have a little look at that. And I don't know why, but I am absolutely hooked on Villa. And, I shared just then, and I'll go back to it, Fixture Ticker, top 10 for defence, top 10 for attack in terms of fixtures. Yeah, Villa don't appear on either. Yeah, I can't keep my eyes off looking at them. And I think it's just that improvement they made under Emery. So we'll touch on that. And then Brentford. Now, I haven't really got anything to share slide-wise with Brentford, but I just thought you see a lot of teams with Wissa, you see a lot of teams with Mbumo, a lot of teams with maybe a defensive option, Henry, I've seen in a couple of teams. But their pre-season, they've played 5, drawn 3, lost 2. So it's, for me, it kind of points out, without Tony being there, and he's not going to be there now until January, they haven't really replaced him. Should they really be a wait and see, or are you, because of their nice fixtures, are you willing to take the gamble? Feel free to answer that one now.
I mean, I think that's an easy one. I couldn't care less about their pre-season. I don't think it matters. Pre-season for me matters around minutes. Do you know what I mean? Like who's getting the minutes, and then just generally the structure and formations of teams. And I think what we've seen from Brentford, the players you expect to get minutes are getting minutes. The structure is the same as last year, especially kind of the kind of back end of the year. So I think the preseason doesn't really matter the form. I think with Brentford, I can see the appeal. Like everyone's cheap, right? Everyone's cheap. We don't know too much around the impact of Tony, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. But we got a bit of a read of data from the back end of last year, and I think both Visser and Mbomo did pretty well. I know Mbomo scored and assisted quite a lot actually, and we know he's on pens now. So I think Brentford, the fixtures are good enough. The team is settled enough. Like when we look at below the big teams, a lot of them are in disarray. I don't think that's the case for Brentford. I think they're a kind of solid upper, kind of mid-table team this year, and they got good fixtures. So I can see the appeal of Mbomo for sure. Like spoiler, he's in all my drafts. I think he's a no-brainer given he's on pens and just how he's performed historically. I like Visser. He's an interesting kind of option for sure. And like defensively, you've got the likes of Henry, who could be really good. I considered him as a 4.5 in a few of my drafts, and I like Flecken. So as of, I don't know if it's official yet, but I think Ray's going to Arsenal on, I think, a loan. It's a great deal for Arsenal actually. Like it's a kind of really smart move, and I think he's an improvement on Ramsdale, who I'm just not a fan of him. So it's an interesting move for Arsenal. But yeah, Ray going to Arsenal means that Flecken should be number 1. He's 4.5. I think he's a really good option in a solid defensive unit. So I think Brentford, you can start with one player for sure. You can start with 2 players. They're great price points. So I don't think you have to put too much emphasis on preseason, mate. If I'm being honest, I never look at the kind of the results from preseason. I don't think it matters.
Yeah, well, we'll come on. I keep saying we'll come on to the team. That's the big finale. The old team reveals, isn't it? And they are there. But Mbumo, there'll be 2 drafts I drag up. The one that I'm stuck on. I'll wait for you to rip apart. Mbumo does not feature. But yeah,
hate it.
Yeah, it's out already. Get out. Change that first thing. But yeah, so we'll come on to that. But yeah, first things first. Arsenal or United. So for me, this is I think most players are probably going to have at least one defender from each, or a goalkeeper. It's then how do you spread the funds into, because you want to attack their attacking players, to use the word attack twice in a sentence, but you want to go for their attacking players. Now, budget could restrict a lot of players between being able to bring in 2 of one and 1 of the other. I don't think many teams will probably do 2 of each. So it's, well, which one? Which of the 2 teams is it better to try and get 2 attacking players from? So the table in front that anybody that's on YouTube should be able to see is listed by cost, but it is the attacking returns based on the stats of last season from game week 32 to game week 38. Now, I don't know what your first impressions of the table are, or which I suppose a good question for you, Ian, Matt, is, there's a whole load of data there. So price points were touched on, goals were touched on, assists is there as well, but there's also expected goals, expected FPL points. Like which of these columns do you pay attention to?
So I think, well, the expected FPL, which is I guess a function of expected goals, expected assists and minutes, is probably the best one. I think probably an even better metric, which isn't on this one, but I think you can kind of probably work out the maths, is expected FPL per minute, because obviously some people have had injuries, some people have double game weeks, right? So I think you got to add a bit of balance around how many minutes they actually can paid. But yeah, that's kind of the main metric, and expected goals, expected FPL. They're for me, those are the metrics I look at. I don't really care about things like shots and goals, and I don't actually care about goals and assists, right? I more care about the expected stats. That's what kind of leads me, and I kind of actually like people who underperform it, and it means that they could improve. But looking at this, Bruno Fernandes stands out like a sore thumb. I said last week he was the first person in my team sheet, and I think that he's been a consistent player in all of my drafts, and wow, he's kind of head and shoulders above everyone there. So that's impressive. I'm kind of surprised by Sancho down the bottom. Those are kind of pretty good.
Got more minutes than I realized he was getting.
I think he kind of went under the kind of radar. Saka is underwhelming versus I guess the kind of hype and whatnot, because I'm probably still viewing him as a must-have, but it's a little bit underwhelming. But Rashford, Ødegaard, Saka, Fernandes, Jesus is injured, so less of a factor there. They're all kind of really solid kind of options, right? So for me, you want to go quite heavy. United don't have the long-term fixtures, I don't think, but the first 3 are kind of really, really good. So you might have to think of an exit plan of who are you moving to them, who would you be moving on to next after the first 3 or 4 fixtures for them. But I think you kind of want Rashford and Fernandes, really, in my opinion. And then when it comes to Arsenal, who have strong fixtures really until about game week 7, really, they've got a really nice run, and they are a better team. I think with I hate to say it, but this is just an opinion, but with United options, because they have the best supported team, there's always a lot of hype. We still don't know if they're a great team. We still don't know if they're going to be challenging for the title. So Arsenal, we know they're a very good team from last year, so that they'll be there or thereabouts.
Yeah,
Manchester
and they've
United,
strengthened.
they're still going. They've strengthened. They're still, and I think Arsenal, and they looked great in the Community Shield. But I think United, they're still on their evolution, so we don't really know. But I think Arsenal is sure thing. So I think you want to be loading with 2 or 3 players from the first game week. That Nottingham Forest at home screams out as a hammering, right? So I want to get the 3 Arsenal players and 2 attackers personally.
Okay.
So
if you were going to sacrifice one, it'd be the United attacker you'd sacrifice, which. Well, from the maybe two attackers from each is where you're going.
Yeah, I'd go for two from each. Really, I think if I was to kind of like stack rank them, like this is just based on penalties drives a big factor here, right? That's a huge difference maker. So I think Arsenal, it'd be Saka. He's the best one because he will always play. He'll always play 90 minutes. We'll talk about probably more minutes in a game now with like the way that stoppages have been recorded. But like Saka, he'll play the whole game. He's on penalties. Yeah, he's the best Arsenal attacker. I can't really differentiate between Rashford and Fernandes, right? So Rashford may become the better option because I think he'll be starting as the centre forward. I don't know if that's good or bad for him, to be honest, but he'll be starting. And Bruno Fernandes, what's the impact of Mount? We don't know. But what we do know is he'll be on like loads of set pieces. He'll be super creative like he was last year. I think he's a kind of great player. So if I was to sacrifice one, it'd be the Odegaard, Martinelli or Havertz. But I'd be looking for two from each.
Two from each. But if you were pushed, you'd drop the Arsenal. Which I get, because I suppose. Go on, sorry.
I think so. Yeah. No, I think so. I think it's around minutes certainty. I think.
Yeah.
I think Martinelli and Havertz, like Odegaard, will be guaranteed to play all games, but we don't know if he'll play deeper with Havertz playing and kind of whatnot. I think Rashford and Fernandes are just like surefire things, in my opinion, especially for those first 3 weeks. And you can always jump off them. They're kind of quite high price points, which is kind of quite convenient. So if Fernandes is suddenly really deep, he's playing the pivot again. He won't, but if he was, for whatever reason, he did it after the World Cup, I think, for United when Casemiro had the red card. I remember that because I got him in just for that. It was like great. I was expecting this like dynamic 10. He's man of the match every game, but he's playing in the double pivot. But yeah, they're good price points to jump off after the first 3 game weeks. So yeah, if I was pushed to it, I'd say 2 from United, 1 from Arsenal, and the 1 would have to be Saka. But I'd be trying to look for 2 from 2. I'd be looking for a really good reason why you wouldn't be going for that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good. That's good. I'll secrets of whether 2 of each have made my draft. They definitely have. But I'm assuming, I appreciate Nketiah with the Jesus injury. It might be a factor. He's not on the list there. And then Hodgland has also come in. I appreciate Hodgland's injured anyway, so I think he's going to miss the first few games, so probably not an option. Yeah. Do you think Nketiah might get some minutes? And maybe that's why you're kind of more concerned, because they've got, Trossard's, Nketiah's, Havertz, Martinelli. There's so many options.
I'll have to wait and see. Like, I mean, we don't really know how long Jesus' injury is, but like, I think Nketiah, I think he blew a bit of his chance last year, and it wasn't really his fault. It was just Arsenal had that dip in form when he was playing the striker. Yeah. So I think he missed his opportunity last season, really. So I think Trossard or Martinelli or Havertz playing the 9 or the false 9 is probably I'd put a higher probability of that. I'm pretty confident after the Community Shield that Havertz would be starting in that position. I thought he was really good. People say, he's the same player. He's missed some good chances. They weren't easy chances, but he was getting into great positions. So I thought he looked solid. I think he'd done enough against the best team in the world to justify starting against Forest.
But then Trossard comes on, gets the double deflection. But he'll take it every day of the week. So does he get a shot because he got the goal? Who knows?
It's in my head around Martinelli. Like, I mean, you always knew Trossard based on last season is a minute. Yeah, I'd say he's a minute's risk because I think Martinelli is the starter there. But Trossard could be coming on 60 minutes at 60 minutes, and then if you have with the extra extended extra time, that's probably going to happen in most games. He could be playing like 50 minutes then coming on, right? So
Hello, you're back. I don't know what happened there. Can you hear me?
I can, mate, loud and clear.
Yeah. Went off for a minute for me there, but we're back. So that's cool. So I'm supposed to finish that particular section. I've just looked at the preseason stats. Now, I gather from what you were saying before, it's more the minutes that you're interested in, as opposed to goals and assists and so on. But kind of what you spoke about, the minutes. So unsurprisingly, the Arsenal player with the most attacking minutes so far preseason has been Saka. Interestingly, Havertz second. Odegaard not far back.
Yeah.
So
that's reassuring. I mean, if you're looking at purely a preseason, right, you'd be picking Trossard with those 4 goals, right? Which is why I don't think you should put too much weight into it.
Yeah.
I think all the usual suspects there have got the minutes to kind of Arsenal, so I think you can go into a fair amount of confidence. And Nketiah's got a lot, actually, to be fair. So there is an amount of kind of randomness. United, it's fairly spread, right? The goals and assists. So I think you can't really say too much, right?
But it's interesting for me, Mount, right? Mount's had the second most minutes. 0. I know it's only pre-season, so you shouldn't read into it too much, but second most minutes behind Sancho. No goals, no assists. Now, is that because of the role he's playing? Because obviously Fernandes has got a goal, Rashford's got a goal and an assist. So is Mount more of the deep lying midfielder? I know there's a lot of talk about, will Mount unleash Fernandes or will Mount be the attacking option?
It's hard to say, and it's wait and see. And I think where possible, you want to just go for surefire things, right? So that's for the United attackers. I'm just going back to Bruno and Rashford. You just know what they're going to do.
Not Anthony with his 2 goals now.
That's too much of a pump for me.
That's a no. Right. So to recap, 2 United, 1 Arsenal, if you have to pick, but ideally 2 from each, if you can fit them in.
I think so. They're both, especially in Arsenal's case, very good teams, right? And they've got very good fixtures. So I think you got to have a good reason why you're not going heavy on those attacks.
Makes sense. I'm glad to hear you say it. Right. Moving on to my headache. Brighton. So we did a section last time, Mitoma versus Marsh.
Yeah.
Marsh came out on top. Now the table here again, it's all listed by price, from game week 32 to 38. So just thought getting the last sort of 6-7 weeks of last season gives us an idea. I can't remember if March had an injury, but he didn't finish the season well at all. He played 480 minutes less than Mitoma. I've got to think that was through some form of injury. But his FPL potential expected points was just shy of 10, whereas Mitoma hit 40. Mitoma was...
It's interesting seeing that, because I know the stats that we looked at last week had them kind of expected points.
Yeah, over the season.
Higher, so I think, I can't remember, but it's got to be an injury, right? So Mitoma's played more than 3 times the minutes. So it's got to be an injury. But Mitoma, I like to be devil's advocate because loads of people love him because he's just like a great dribbler. He's had some great highlights and he's a very good player. But I don't know if output is there. And I'm saying kind of if I was to pick a 6.5 Brighton mid, and the reason why we're looking at Brighton obviously is they have 3 amazing fixtures.
Yes,
right,
correct.
to begin with, right? So they start off with Luton at home. I can't remember the next 2, but they're good looking. They're good looking fixtures. So caveat is that come game week 4, they have really bad fixtures, right? So you need a bit of an exit plan. So Brighton, they're a good attack to start with. There's just a lot of options, right? There's a lot of options.
That's lot where the headache comes from.
I'd probably change my mind. I'd say if you were to pick one, kind of ignoring price point, ignoring position, I'd probably go Mitoma now, just because he does have good stats, and I just think he's he's probably more nailed
Yeah.
than the other players. I mean, there's going to be a lot of rotation. So for me, I have done a few drafts with João Pedro. So obviously he's coming from kind of Watford. He can play striker. He can play number 10. He can potentially play on the wings as well. He's quite infamously now taking a penalty in their last preseason game, whilst Gross and all the other penalty takers on the pitch. Because I think McAllister was the penalty taker last year. He's obviously at Liverpool now. Gross would be next in line. João Pedro, he kind of took it. So you're thinking 5.5 million. A striker as well, where there's less options than midfield. That's great. So a few drafts do have him. He's a real good enabler, and I think he could be the bandwagon at the start of the year, right? So if you look at a player who could bag a few goals the first couple of game weeks and then rise in price rapidly, it'll be João Pedro. I just don't know enough about him, to be honest. And I think back to that. Will he start? Because they could play Welbeck and Ferguson. Ferguson's a great player, right? So they could play a 4-4-2 with them up front. They could play Ankiso as the number 10. So there's so many kind of options there.
That's it. I get what you're saying.
I don't know. It's tough. It's tough. So I'd be favouring Mitoma just for that nailedness. So good fixtures, decent stats, and you can be pretty sure that he'll play all 3 games. Everyone else, I think, there's a bit of a rotation risk there. There's so many options, right? There's so many options.
Yeah, and I was sold after our last discussion on March. Absolutely sold. But I do start to, and again, I might have been led by the Twitter posts and teams, but yeah, there's just so many options in that attack, and I think you're right. I think the one who's guaranteed the minutes is Mitoma. Pedro's had a really good preseason, but was he at Watford 2 years ago?
He came from Watford, so I can't remember too much when they were in the Prem. But
3 goals apparently. I looked it up. 1,200 minutes and 3 goals.
I think the thing with that is I saw someone quote some stats from his time at Watford, and it was really underwhelming. He had 0.3 or something like expected goals per 90, which it's not great given he was in a top performing team in one of the better teams at least within the Championship. But then it's a case of, is it the player itself or the system, right, that they got at Brighton? Because March, I bet his historic stats were shit, probably. Right? And then they had the new system, then he started flourishing. So it's not to say that for João Pedro, I won't put too much precedent on his historic stats, but I've got a bit of FOMO with him. I think he could explode, and I do look at people's team with him. I'm feeling pretty jealous. A few of my drafts do have him, but I think I'm edging towards not having him just because it's a bit of an inflexible price point, and I just think there's too much of a rotation risk there.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
But I think I might either dodge them all together, which one of my drafts is a dodge altogether from an attacking point of view, anyway. Or Mitoma, purely based on those minutes, but. The preseason, that's how they've done from a minutes point of view. So Gross has got the most, but Gross, I don't know what they'll do next season, but I know he spent a little bit of time at right back and the holding midfield role. So I know he scored well. It'd be interesting to get your thoughts on Gross, because I've seen him in quite a few teams as well, because he did score well last season.
I think it depends before McAllister got them, really. So I think he was on the pitch with João Pedro. So if you want to Brighton player who could get you pens, I'd go him over kind of Gross. Yeah, he might. He's out of position in the bad sense, right? He could be playing right back, right, or he could be playing in the pivot. So I wouldn't be considering him at all. I think the stats probably in the previous screen kind of suggest that as well. He's kind of not. He's not getting in the areas that you want. I think March really screams. Yeah, what's it saying there?
So in the last 7 games, expected goals of 0.99, expected assist of 1.7. So 3 attacking returns maybe in the last 7 game weeks, compared to a Mitoma who is picking up maybe 6. So
that's quite stark, and that's quite stark there. So Gross, I wouldn't be touching him, but I think March stands out here, right? Because he's just played just over a game, effectively 108 minutes. So that concerns me as well as like just the general spread. So minutes kind of matters in preseason. He hasn't done a great deal of minutes. I'm sure he'll start the first game, but Mitoma, he's got that couple of more minutes in his legs and whatnot. I kind of switch in what I said last. I think if they both had good preseason runs and were both had no competition, I'd probably favour March, but I'd be favouring Mitoma if I was going for
it's interesting, isn't it? This
Brighton attacker.
Yeah, because if you kind of look at the minutes, you're probably going, Mitoma is going to be on the left. You then seem to have potentially two up front, or maybe one just behind the other, which is Pedro and Welbeck. And then two's on the right, because you kind of look at it. I mean, gross if he's playing more attacking. Obviously, he had the most minutes. But then you kind of have to go down a little bit to even see Ferguson only 95 minutes. March has played 108. And Ciso has played 101. So it's all been shared.
Yeah.
So it's
you got like
it's like which one's going to play.
Exactly. They're all pretty good players as well. And I think back in the last season, we saw quite a lot of players just come in, for random games. So you've got about like 6 players going for 2 positions there, really. So or 3 positions. So I'm avoiding for now. But if I was going for one, and that's a shame because of their. Well, I think I am. I've got some drafts with João Pedro as an enabler, maybe because of his price point, to be honest. And he does have a real nice upside for sure if he gets the minutes. But and if he's on bends. But I'll probably avoid them if I was to go one. It's probably Mitoma now. They do have the great. Yeah, they do have the great starting fixtures, which is having a good start makes a big difference. So
that makes sense. Okay, good. Similar thoughts, which is good to hear. Well, I'm dodging, I think, altogether, if I'm honest. But I got asked a question on Twitter, which has brought me to this screen, which was it was just after the Jesus injury, 8 million striker.
Yeah.
Who do you replace him with? Now, I can't help but look past Watkins. Now, kind of mentioned before on the fixture ticker, both attacking, which is the one that matters really for Watkins. Villa are not in the top 10. I don't know what number they are, but they're not in the top 10. So generally, I would dodge. But there's just something about. So the stats here are the last 90. So the second half of the season, last 19 game weeks, and you just look at it. This one I've put down as expected FPL. So for anybody that's expected points, that is. So anybody that's listening as opposed to watching on YouTube, you've got Haaland at the top, unsurprisingly, on 118, Kane on 115. Watkins 108. The fourth is Wilson on 92. So Watkins is kind of in that top 3 very comfortably, based on half a season. So I don't know. There's just something every time I watch Villa, I'm like, Watkins can do something here, regardless of who the opposition is.
No, it's quite amazing seeing it like this actually. And like his actual points he scored from the game week 20 to 38 is 116. Haaland had 128, right? That premium asset that you captain every week. So Watkins wasn't far off him. So I'm backing Watkins to have an amazing season, right? I think he's always been a very, very good player. I think from what we can see here and just based on our gut judgment as well, he kicked on the second half last season under the new management of Villa. So he's going to have a great season, no doubt about it. And these numbers and stats are really reassuring. He's been overperforming his FPL expected points by a little bit, but not by a massive margin. So it seems like his performance is sustainable, like more so than Kane's, who overperformed quite a lot. He's had 136 points against 116 expected. So Kane was overperformed more than Watkins. So it's good. But are you obsessed with Villa or Watkins?
I think it's Watkins. I do have.
If you're obsessed with Villa, why aren't you obsessed with Newcastle? Because I get it. I'm backing Villa to have a good season. Yeah, but they have just that bad starting fixtures. So I'm not going to load up. But the same goes for Newcastle, right? Newcastle are a really good team now. Yeah, they're kind of building on their squad and whatnot. they got bad fixtures as well. So like, yeah, is the obsession Villa or is it Watkins?
I think it is Watkins, but there might be a second Villa player in. I'll show you in a second.
Fair enough.
There might be one, but I think it is Watkins. But it's just to answer that question. You know, no Jesus. I think a lot of people were going for the new Chelsea guy, and how do you pronounce it?
Nkunku, yeah.
That's the one, Nkunku. Obviously now he's going to be out for a little while. So
I think it's a lack of options. So I've made a few drafts, but then, and what I hate about picking Watkins is his first game is Newcastle away, which is tough. That's probably like the third worst game you can get, right, after kind of Arsenal and Man City kind of away at the moment, like defensively. So I hate having that bad first game. His next game is Everton at home though, so like, hey, he could haul there. But it's just a lack of alternatives, really. So like, what we were saying is, pick good players from good teams that are settled. They know the system. You know they'll play all the minutes. Watkins will probably on penalties. I mean, he has got a history of missing them, but at the moment we're assuming that he's still on penalties. It ticks so many boxes. The only thing that he doesn't have is he has mixed fixtures, right? But if you look at the other options that you've got, there's Jackson at Chelsea. Now, Villa, we know how they're going to play, and they're building something. Chelsea is a bit of an unknown for me. I mean, some people are quite hot on them. They got a good run of fixtures, game week 3 onwards. But we don't really know how they're going to settle under Pochettino, and also it's a whole new squad pretty much. So Jackson is an alternative at 7, but for me, it's probably more sensible to wait. You got João Pedro, who is a 10 rather than a striker, but we just know nothing about him, how he's going to perform at Brighton, how he's going to perform in the Prem. Is he even going to start? And then after that, it's really slim pickings, isn't it, for strikers? So I think Watkins is good to be obsessed with him. I think it's like, it'd be more of a debate if Jesus was like still fit, you know, but but they're not. So I think, I think Watkins is a great pick.
Okay, I'm glad to hear you say it because he's in the vast majority of our drafts. Okay, so other thoughts before we do the big reveal. Hopefully you didn't just hear that plane flying over my flat, by the way. If you heard some rumbling, apologies.
That was a drum roll for the big reveal, isn't it?
The big reveal. I'll get it to fly back over just before. And but yeah, I mean, we've kind of touched on the top already, to be honest. So it'd be, Charity Shield thoughts we've already touched on. It was mainly for the Arsenal. I think probably the City team, especially with Mahrez leaving, De Bruyne's obviously coming back, but not quite fit.
I mean, I put a bit more emphasis on like Community Shield just because it's like, I know it's a friendly, but it is a cup tie and it's against the best 2 teams in the country, right? So put a bit more weight onto it. I think the most interesting was stoppages. So that, like, obviously the new rules are in line with what happened in the World Cup last year. They're interesting. So I think the game ran for, was it 9 or 10 minutes of extra time? And looking back to the World Cup, that's quite consistent, right? So there's going to be a lot more minutes, which means that has lots of implications for kind of FPL. I mean, one of my takeaways is that I think it devalues premium keepers versus cheap keepers. And the reason for that is, I think for cheaper keepers who are typically in worse teams, it's more of a chance to accrue save points and bonuses, which is like, I think is a good thing. For a player like Edison, I'll use him because he's the stereotype. It gives him more of a chance to concede a goal. Right, it's like extra minutes, like for him to, if City are 3-0 up, to concede a random goal and he loses his quick clean sheet kind of bonuses. I think what could be interesting if there are attacking defenders who consistently get subbed off at 70 minutes, they become more valuable, right? But we don't know who they are yet, so identifying them is the dream. But I think that stoppage kind of piece and the implications there is probably the biggest takeaway. I thought Arsenal were very good, and I liked Havertz a lot. So my thoughts on like Havertz have gone up. Like, I'm putting more weight towards him. I'm feeling more confident about Havertz first couple of weeks, and Martinelli's been reduced a little bit because of the Trossard minutes threat. When it comes to Man City, I think Foden and Alvarez are both traps, really, which is a shame. They're great price points and kind of really good players. But Foden didn't play, right? I know he came on, but it's a reminder that he's competing with Alvarez, De Bruyne, Bernardo Silva, potentially Palmer as well, right? So there's a lot of kind of same as Brighton. You want to go for as many surefire things as possible. I think Alvarez is the same. Is he's a bit too much of a risk. I kind of like know he's a great kind of price point, but and started, but he rotates with De Bruyne. That's the position he's been playing in. Is the 10. It's not the winger. So De Bruyne came on, looked really good, and changed the game. You be confident he's going to be eaten into his minutes quite significantly, if not game week 1, game week 2 onwards. So I think those two City options are kind of traps. I also don't think Grealish is an option. Again, he looks I was gonna say he still looks pissed, but like he maybe there's a bit of
the
that,
treble.
But,
Leave the lad alone.
But he's looking a central midfielder who's playing on the wing, right? Do you know what I mean, in terms of that attacking threat? So I think, I don't think he's going to get enough. I think the stats are okay, but not big enough to say, hey, I'm going there. So I think from a attacking point of view, for me, it's just Haaland, which is a shame because they're the best team with great fixtures. So yeah, a couple of things from the Community Shield, but the stoppages and the implications of that. So longer games, I think that would be the interesting one to keep an eye on, and it's influenced my drafts a little bit.
This is a key takeaway for me, and this is the whole point in this. It's for your wisdom to come and me to think about it.
I mean, that's a random one. I think when it's like wisdom based on, hey, here's some stats, and it's just screaming out at us. That's kind of wise. Me just thinking, it'll be a little bit longer. So I think this is going to happen. I mean, that's just guesswork, but.
No, but it makes sense. The amount of times I've had a City defender or goalkeeper or whoever, or even anybody from the big teams, and the team's been 3-4-0 up, and then they've decided, we'll just concede in the 94th minute just for nothing other than to annoy me and take away my clean sheet. I think that extra time, which I think is a fantastic rule, by the way. I hate time wasting in football. I think it's hopefully going to make games more enjoyable to watch. But what I'm going to take away here is you'll see from a draft, I've got a £5 million keeper. No prizes for guessing who that is. But I like having. I've always played with swapping keepers. 2 4.5s is usually the way to go, and I've got 2 in my head that I think could work well. But to have a £5 million keeper, it's Onana. I'm not massive. He's not going to make loads of save points because United's defense is too good. Whereas the 4.5 options will. Whereas, that clean sheet going versus the save points argument, I like a lot. So that's what you're getting to think about this week.
I mean, should we talk? We were to talk about 4.5 keepers now.
Yeah, we can. Go on. Why not?
I know you're keeping like a kind of a strict agenda, so you can make notes of when we're talking about topics. So 4.5 keepers whenever this minute stamp is now. But I like them a lot. And historically, they've outperformed 4.5 defenders, and the gap between the 4.5 keepers and the premium ones has always been quite narrow, or 4.5 ones, if you get the right one, outperform the premium keepers. So I like them for a number of reasons, right? So it's all down to them playing for poorer teams, right? So when a good team keeps a clean sheet, they've typically scored a couple of goals as well, right? So bonus points and those sort of things, they go towards attackers. When a poorer team keep a clean sheet, it's more likely to be a 0-0 or a 1-0, right? So there's less bonus points being derived by the attackers, right? So the keeper has a greater chance to gather those kind of bonus points. So that's kind of one big thing. It's just that propensity to kind of get bonus points, really. And then it's really save points. Save points really can save these guys. They can get 3. Like some keepers, their base is 3 points because they make so many saves based on the setup. And the keepers making saves are going to teams that are conceding lots of shots. Ideally, they're shots that are not very threatening, but like bad teams will be conceding more shots than good teams, right? So Ederson is not going to receive many shots a game, is he? Like just because, and the same goes for Ramsdale or Raya, because both those teams will dominate possession. So save points make hell of a difference. So I just think the gap isn't there. And like 4.5 keepers can offer a lot of value. And like this year, I think we're kind of blessed with some really great options. I don't think we had it last year as much, but this year we've got Flecken at Brentford. They're a really good team. Defensively, they've been kind of strong. Ray has been a good performer, so we'll see if Flecken continues that. We've got Sanchez going to Chelsea, which means that, well, he could become an option if Kepa goes to kind of buy in. But like at Brighton, it means that I know they've signed another keeper, but it should mean Steele until your first wild card is quite nailed on. So a really good team. He's performed good as a keeper. He can even get assists, right? So he was pretty magic for some people. So he's a great option. Crystal Palace, statistically, I think they were the 5th or 4th best team in terms of expected goals conceded last year. Johnston will be playing every game. Guaita has been like banned, he's been banished. You know what I mean, sent to train with the reserves. So he's a great option. And then my personal favourite, Pickford. Everton got great fixtures for the first couple of game weeks. He's guaranteed to play, and he plays for a manager who historically has created keepers who have great. He builds a system that is great for FPL points because, every goalkeeper that's played under a Dyche defense has scored loads of points. They're very defensive. They're not very attacking. So there's that point around if they do squeeze a win, like it's going to be 1-0, so the keeper can get some points. And he's got a system where it encourages high volume but low quality shots because of their like deep defense and whatnot, which is perfect for save points. So I'm big on Pickford myself, but I think there's loads of great 4.5 options myself.
Well, then looking at the alternates of getting 2 4.5. So at the minute, I've spent 9 million on my keepers, 5 million, and then the classic, like everybody else, 4 million Areola.
Yeah.
But Turner's also 4 million, I believe. I might be wrong. But just gone to
Turner's 4, and so he's Arsenal now. So I think we're all hoping for tomorrow or Friday before the deadline.
Yeah,
because is it being announced? His move to Forest? Is it being announced yet?
I think so. I think it's been. I don't know whether it's officially done, but just if you had Pickford 4.5, Turner as a 4 million, but I'm assuming if he's going to Forest, he's going to play because they needed to replace Henderson. So I'm assuming if they're buying a keeper, he's going to be the start. So over the first 7 weeks, if you've got Pickford and Turner, you can have games for your keeper against Fulham, week 1, then Sheffield United, Wolves, Sheffield United again, Burnley, Brentford, Luton. Now,
that's
the first 7 games,
Sheffield United on the surprise package, isn't it?
That's it, yeah, because you're playing them twice. But they just alternate so nicely. And it's only 8.5 million spent on your goalkeepers. So I'm not on that at the minute, but that could be where I lean.
I think if you're looking to save money, I think the goalkeepers are the area to do it. And I think even without the fixture rotation, I think he works quite well with Johnston as well from Crystal Palace when I had a quick look at it as well. So like Turner is a nice enabler. But even if you've got a 4.5 keeper and they're playing a great team, they can accrue save points.
Yeah.
If Pickford is playing Arsenal, he'll get peppered with shots. He can concede 2 goals and still come out with 3-4 points. So I think it's a nice area to save. And the 5.0 options, I'm not a fan of them. I think the next stage I would be looking at would probably be Ederson. And I've got to ignore that I found him frustrating last year. I view that as an exception. He made like so many last minute goals were conceded, right? And he kind of lost that kind of clean sheet. He would be the other option I'd be looking at, other than a 4.5, just because of like that nailed option into the Man City defense. So I think I'm big on the 4.5s this year. Really big. I think some are going to points.
Yeah, why not Onana? Because he seems to be in a lot of drafts.
I think it's the United factor. Like he's a big signing for United, and like a lot of people have spoken about De Gea And it's like, oh, if we had a keeper who could play out from the back, would be a lot better. So Ronaldo does that. So again, United, a lot of the big teams have this hype, but United, it goes into overload. So I think there's like, sorry if you are a fan, like, but there is a lot of there's a lot of hype that
half
goes
the audience
into
is
them.
turned off.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know fixtures. I don't want to be transferring my keeper after 3 game weeks as well. And like Man United, they have good, okay fixtures for. I'm targeting a wild card around game week 8 or 9, so you should have this in mind in terms of how static you want your team and what length of period. But I don't think he's got great. I don't think he has great fixtures for that amount of time. I think they go south after game week 4, game week 5. So he'd be a keeper where I could be saving a bit of value. So he'll get a clean sheet from what was great. But after that, have a look at the fixtures and see if it's worth over 4.5.
Yeah, Tottenham next, isn't it? Tottenham after that.
Harry Kane is probably not going, right? If he's going, it's probably end of the transfer window. I mean, would you put against him? Bag at least one against them?
No. If last season's anything to go by, you'll bag every game. That's how it felt at times. Right, okay. You've got me thinking about keepers. So the keeper I'm going to show you in my draft is probably not going to be the keepers when I start. But a couple of the points we touched on. Effective ownership we touched on last week, which was you ignore it. We touched on it a little bit before. I'm not even going to ask you about premiums because I know your answer. The answer is Haaland, yes, he is a bust. Of course he is. And you go with 1 premium. Simple, nice and easy.
Yeah, I think I've tried to fit in Salah. And my first draft had which I just made like 5 minutes after like the game was released. Like it had Salah in it. I just think the fixtures aren't good enough to justify him at this moment in time.
Yeah.
So I'd like him, and I'm going to have to take a hit on him game week 2. Right, he's going to score hard. So good on you if you got him for game week 2 against Bournemouth. But the fixtures in and around, I don't think are good enough to justify his price. I mean, I'll be having him in my team when I wildcard the first time.
Yeah.
Game week 8, game week 9 for sure. It's just his price versus fixture. I don't think are worth it. So I've just got to accept that. Hey, I'll lose rank probably in game week 2 when Salah is a captain option against Bournemouth. Kane, it's just a bit too much of an unknown. I mean, Spurs' fixtures initially aren't great. Then they game week 3 or 4 onwards look really good. Yeah, there's just a bit too much uncertainty. He's got a new manager as well, so there's too many boxes that aren't getting ticked there. So I'm all my drafts are just Haaland as an option.
Just Haaland.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you same mind.
Yeah, just it's the money basically. I've played about to begin with. I had Trent in, and then I had tried to get Salah in, but it just as a Liverpool fan just feels wrong not to have at least one Liverpool player on the team. But that's where I'm at the minute. You told me early doors, go with my head, not my heart. Do the sensible option, and the sensible option in the way I'm looking at it is to not chase the differential for the sake of it. So I think I'd have Salah in just because I know a lot of people don't, but it doesn't feel, like the right move because 12.5 for Salah, 9 million for Rashford. I think Rashford in those first 3-4 weeks will probably score just as well as Salah. So
exactly my thinking, mate. Is that I think Saka and Rashford could match him over the first 3 game weeks, right? Do you know what I mean? And it's a lot cheaper, and your whole team could be strengthened for that. So it's just the way the fixtures landed, really, mixed with that price point.
Yeah. Okay, team reveals nearly very close. So the first question. So I've just put before we do that. The first question you've done, it was which teams have you focused on and why. We kind of covered that when you looked at the fixture tickers, so on and so forth. But there has been questions submitted by @FPL Matt W. Mentioned a few things on Twitter, so I just thought I'd throw them. Thanks to Matt if you're listening for firing in some questions. Didn't say you was going to do this, mate. But going forward, if anybody wants to fire, I might pick the best 2 or 3 questions every week from anybody that comments on the YouTube.
Are you going to judge that? Oh, that's putting you in an awkward position.
I'll get a lot of hate mail, but I'll try and pick the best questions off anybody that comments on the video or anybody that puts us in on Twitter, and you've got our handles in the video here. But from Matt, so he was asking around transfers and saving early doors we spoke about last week. So ideally, you go into game week 2 with those with 2 transfers, or going into game week 3, sorry, should I say, with a banked transfer. What are your thoughts on hits? Do you take them? When do you take them? Do you try and dodge them altogether?
Yeah, so like hits is an easy one. So like I think I've never been great at taking hits, and I think if you're planning ahead enough, like you should be able to avoid and navigate around hits wherever possible. So I avoid them unless there's an exception. Where there's exceptions is if there's just like a no-brainer, do you know what I mean? Like some kind of big injuries or whatnot, where it's and there's just a player screaming out that this person's like the perfect person to fit replace them, and also they're going into a really kind of good fixture run. But like it's the exception rather than the rule. I know lots of people can have luck with hits, but you always just like I think you can, if you're planning ahead, you can avoid them, and that -4 points it's quite big. It's quite a big deficit. So smart how they planned, like they designed the game, because I think it's a real decision point. So for me, I think advanced planning can like trump making hits, and I'll avoid it unless like there's something majorly kind of wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know how many I did last year, but I think it would have been probably the ones I did were shit. Like, so like,
that's why you don't do it.
Yeah, exactly. But like, I probably would have done 5 or less.
Yeah, answers the question right there. Take them only when you need to, if you need to. And
you've
again,
already got bench as well, like, and do you know what I mean? When you've got to account for your bench as well, and like those moves. So it's not just the -4; it's the -4 plus the points your player on the bench would have got as well. So
yeah.
If they're starting, that's 2 points, right? So you're down.
Yeah.
You got
so you've got to make 6.
That player, that player's got to make 6 in that game week, and then I think it's tough to justify that.
I thought about that. I'd always thought it's just a 4, but yeah, of course, like because your first bench player would have come on. So it's an interesting way of looking at it. Over the years, I've generally found myself doing far less hits, and I think my rank has got better as a result. So I can see the benefit.
Yeah, I think it's just generally my style is just be patient and kind of cool and just like plan ahead and whatnot. So like I think there's obviously a lot of noise, right? Let's not beat around the bush. Some people do this for their livelihood, right? So they want to generate content and updates and whatnot. And it's like, this is the hot player for this week, this is the hot player for next week. And like you do get a massive FOMO. Do you know what I mean? Like wow, my team's not going to be great this week, but there's 38 game weeks, right? So like some weeks you're gonna have to just sacrifice. Is what it is, really.
Yeah. Right, we'll keep people waiting longer. Go on, sorry. Last point.
And then future transfers. Yeah, I'm saving. I'm not going to make a transfer unless there's something disastrous. Game week 2, so I've got 2 going into game week 4. I've got teams that I'm targeting for game week 3. Sorry, I've got teams I'm targeting: Spurs and Chelsea.
Yeah, I thought Chelsea. I'll tell you, I mean, I'll go on to the draft, and it's mine first, so people can wait for the actual top 5 managers team till last. But there's mine now. Touching on Chelsea, so there's 2 there for people that are listening rather than on YouTube. Just to run through my current preferred option. So goal, I've got Onana. Then it's Gabriel, Estupiñán, Stones, and Tarkowski in defence. I'll come back to why Tarkowski's there. I've then done the 2 attacking Arsenal, attacking United. I've gone without the Brighton option, so I've got Martinelli, Rashford, Saka, and Bruno Fernandes, and then up front, my favourite player outside of Liverpool, Watkins, alongside Haaland, obviously with the armbands. Bench-wise, as I say, Areola, probably keepers will change, but then I've got Wissa, so I've still got the Brentford attack for when their fixtures come nice from game week 2. I've then got Torres from Villa. So Villa and Everton fixtures are very nice together for the first 9 game weeks. So that's the reason I've got Tarkowski and Torres there. Just I'll play one of them every week. The other one I'll sit on my bench. And then finish with a Luton 4.5 million defender, midfielder, should I say. Can't even see that, whatever that says. Basically, he's going to start apparently. So it could be
Fair
any
enough.
it could be any 4.5 million midfielder. I like it because of the two Arsenal and United attackers. I'm happy with the bench options, being able to, as I say, exchange Tarkowski and Torres. I like Wissa being on the bench as an option. I'm quite happy to play, but there is no Brighton attack. So there is that. The reason I've gone for that over B, again, for people listening rather than watching, I'll go through the whole team. But B's main differentials, Chilwell's on the bench. So Chilwell with a 4 million defender. Now, the reason I'm kind of against that is I looked at the first two game weeks and what 11 I'd put on the pitch, and Chilwell didn't feature in either of the game weeks. So I'm just having a 5.5 million pound defender sat on my bench for 2 weeks for no point, when I can just try and get him back in game week 3 when I've got 2 transfers to do some good moves. So it seemed pointless having him on the bench for that reason. And then the other differences are I've got March and Mbeumo, but it does mean that the sacrifice was Martinelli. So it's just the one Arsenal attacking midfielder in Saka.
Yeah, I think obviously I can. There's a lot of consistency.
Be as harsh as you want to be.
They're looking good. This isn't about me saying I don't like this bit of your team because it needs to be aligned with mine. So, a couple of things. So on your current draft, where you got a visitor from Brentford as a striker on your bench, when would you ever play him?
So he'd come in game week 2, 3, I want to say 5. Their fixture, when their fixtures come nice, I'm happy to play him. So I'll probably end up playing a 3-4-3. Quite a lot of weeks.
4-4-2, and I didn't see that. So he comes in for Tarkowski
or Torres.
Yeah, okay, that's cool. I was thinking like if you were going to replace a midfielder or a striker for him, it's not going to happen based on who you've got. But that works quite nice. So because sometimes people have like a good bench option. It's just like, when are they ever going to come in?
Yeah. Like Chilwell. Honestly, in that second team, Chilwell's never going to see the pitch for the first 2 weeks.
So I can see the logic with this or that. I mean, do you have any money in the bank?
No, because I would have preferred Mbeumo
to be. I was going to say, could you have a 4.5 striker and Mbeumo? But I think he's replacing Tony directly. But,
so I could get away with this because I could make a 4.5, and this might be what I end up doing. If I do alternate Pickford and Turner, I'll get £500,000 back. So then I can downgrade Wissa to a 4.5 and then get Mbeumo as a fifth midfielder. That could come.
Yeah, I mean, I would consider that. I'd run the kind of data and the kind of stats on that and see if that kind of looks as an option. I mean, Tarkowski, I get why you've got him as well. I mean, is there a 4.0 who could match him, given that he plays for Everton, right? I mean, you could look at Bulldog, who has a good fixture from Sheffield United. But no, I think it's a solid team, and I like the kind of this kind of rotation for sure. I think if you want to save money anyway, I'd probably be looking at that kind of goalkeeper option. I mean, when you're looking, I know you said that you've got no money in the bank. I mean, where is your head at in terms of the second Arsenal midfielder? So you got Martinelli.
Where
do you put him against Havertz and Odegaard? Given Saka's a no-brainer, right? Which I think
Saka's. That's it. This was then who's the second best. So partly money. So it's Martinelli's 8, Odegaard's 8.5.
Yeah,
I haven't got the 0.5. So it was rarely between Martinelli, Trossard, and Havertz.
Yeah.
It was the Charity Shield give me some confidence because Martinelli obviously started on the left.
Yeah.
And when Havertz also started up front, but Havertz came off for Trossard. Martinelli didn't. So part of me
was actually Martinelli came off, didn't he? I think it was Havertz.
Oh, was he? Shows you how close I was looking. But the fact that he started, he's the one. If any of the 4 midfielders there are going to go, it's Martinelli. That's getting taken out because of the lack of potential minutes. But
I think he's going to start though, isn't he? I think.
I think so.
Every game he was fit, he started. Pretty much.
I think he will. I think he'll be ahead of Trossard in the run order, and he might only get 60 minutes, 70 minutes, but in those first 3 game weeks, that'll be more than enough for him to do some damage. But I would prefer Odegaard because I think Odegaard will get more points. But it's getting that 0.5 which I could potentially get out the keepers, but I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced on Odegaard, which sounds really stupid. But I'm not. I think he overperformed last season.
Yeah, that's what's on my mind. He outperforms, and that's probably. I mean, I think he's done it historically, so there's probably enough data points to say he's just a very, very good player who outperforms his stats. But he just always looks very deep. And I noticed in the Community Shield, Martinelli and Saka were taking corners, for example. So there's that like kind of assist potential from those set pieces that could go down as well. So he's a tremendous player, but I think it's a little bit too deep for me. So I kind of agree with what you're saying there. So I think it's a good team, and I like that kind of this option there. I mean, Torres, I think you've given the logic as to why you've got him, because he'll be kind of rotating it. It's just, when is he going to rotate in? First 5 weeks or something like that.
So yeah, when game week 2, 5, and 6, when
he's playing Everton in game week 2, for example.
That's where he'll drop in. So that basically I'll run with those two defenders, just probably alternating, or both will be benched if Wissa's got a nice fixture. Up until game week 8, game week 9, when I'm probably looking at a potential wild card anyway. So it just meant it was one less transfer I had to think about.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I think it's good logic there. I mean, like on the face of it, I'll be like, "Why you got that Villa defender?" But like, if he comes in when Wissa and Tarkowski don't have a good game, so that makes a hell of a lot of sense for sure. I mean, it's good looking team. Then the one on the left is you got Mbeumo and March rather than Martinelli, and I guess the rotation of Wissa, Tarkowski, and Powell. So let's just say Wissa because he's the best player there. So will I take Martinelli over Mbeumo? Yeah, I think so. Obviously, there's a big difference in price point, but yes, I kind of would. And then would I take, I guess, March or Matoma over Tarkowski, Wissa, or Torres? Or that's a bit tighter there. I wouldn't have March, but kind of Matoma, like we were agreeing on. That's a bit tighter, but yeah, I think I can see the logic there. And obviously, you got Chilwell on the bench, but you're saying you won't play him the first couple of game weeks. I mean, I challenge yourself on. Would you play Stones away to Newcastle? Is it away or home? Like he's played Newcastle.
I think they were home to Newcastle, whereas Chilwell's away at West Ham, and I fancy West Ham to get a goal.
Yeah, I think you'd favour Stones on that. So yeah, I get that logic. I think your preferred team, so the one with the rotation of Wissa, Tarkowski, and Powers, is it's just a planned moves, right? So kind of what will you be doing game week 3, game week 4, and like will you be screwing yourself over there? Like just because I know your option B has got Chilwell there for game week 3 in there, which is nice to have. I mean, I'd be prioritizing the here and now over the stuff that's coming up down the line. But yeah, I mean, what would your plan moves be game week 3 or move? Given like I think it's always good to kind of like have 2 transfers in your back pocket just in case something goes wrong. So what would be your one move?
So I don't plan on doing a transfer for game week 2. So hopefully I'd have 2 free ones, and then it all depends. I'd have to look at the fixtures again, but it all depends. So if Martinelli's not getting enough minutes, I'd probably drop him for and then Mbeumo somewhat. Again, depends on the fixtures, but I could get like 1.5 million out of him, and then that could help me go from Wissa up to a Jackson when Chelsea's fixtures turn, or if Nkunku's back, it could go to him. If all those Arsenal and United players are going along very nicely, that would be much harder to do. So I could potentially drop Wissa to a 4.5, which would give me one less bench option. But then I could upgrade the midfielder to a 6 million if somebody like Gibbs White or McAllister takes off at Liverpool potentially. Or I could bring in Chilwell for your Torres or your Tarkowski. So there's options, but I'm thinking it's not as flexible as I want it to be, just as I'm saying it out loud.
But all of them have to bet on Martinelli out, and I think Arsenal have like a good run throughout. But like, it's not a bad option, right? Do you know what I mean? It's not a bad option, like removing him and Yeah, just I mean, this kind of we don't know about Chelsea, right? So I think that's a bit of a caveat, is that everyone assumes that they'll start off pretty good and then be great for their good run, but we don't know. Are they going to be last season's Chelsea, or are they going to be completely new and like a top 4 team? But like you can, there's cheaper options within Chelsea. Do you know what I mean? Like, I mean, I don't know. I'm like squinting now to look at who your like Luton midfielder option is. But there's the number 10 for Chelsea. What's his name? It's like begins with a C, and there's a he's 4.5, and with Nkunku out, there's a 4.5 option at Chelsea that could be starting. So that could be an interesting option on that team, just to prep yourself a little bit. I mean, there's no guarantees he's going to start long term or whatnot, but that could be a way of hedging your bets, given you've got 2 surefire starters in Torres and Vissa there. But I think it's a good team. I think it's a good team, really. So there's a few considerations around the edges, but I mean, it's that horrible tournament. A lot of it's template, but that's because you've looked at the good teams. So I think it's pretty solid, you know.
Well, that it's Nakamba, and he was playing at Villa.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm quite happy with the comments again. Yeah, you know what? It's because of Villa. I was like, you know, it's I need to get 3 Villa in there through the back door. But so there's things to think about. The flexibility you've got me thinking on there, which is good. The keepers, I can't see me starting with those 2 keepers after the conversation about the 4.5 against the 5 made a lot of sense. So
just have a look at it. Yeah, have a look at it. Have a look at it, and like look beyond the first 3 fixtures for Onana. I mean, I'm not hot on the United defence beyond the first couple of game weeks.
Yeah. That's it. It's speaking to what it is. It's FOMO, because if I get rid of Onana, I'll feel like I have to get in Luke Shaw or somebody, because I think clean sheet against Wolves is probably nailed on.
It's 6 points though, isn't it?
Yeah.
You'll get a penalty save now, won't you? You'll get a penalty save from us just to get like a 15,
I'll be like, what the hell, Matt? You're meant to be top 5 in the world, mate. Stop giving me this terrible advice. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on to what everybody's actually here for, and that is a top 5 player in the world's draft. So there's 3 you sent, and I think it's moved. So although for anybody watching where it says see in current, I think you've actually done a little bit of tinkering since. So I don't know which one you want to look at or which one you want to talk through.
Yeah, I mean, should I just talk about the consistencies? Because there's a lot of
that's a good idea.
A lot of similarities. So like, I'll kind of like call out, rather than specific players, I'll call out just the price points, because there's some players that could be interchangeable.
I suppose the thoughts, like for people like at my level, like and you're the next level up, it's like why have you done it? You know, what are your thoughts behind that particular those particulars?
Yeah, so general themes is like, let's look at a 5 to 6 game week window. Look at where's their strong fixtures for strong teams, and like try and get as many nailed on players as possible, really. So that was the kind of like logic, and I kind of took a couple of different approaches. One was like going really heavy on my first 11, which I've historically done, and it's always kind of worked quite nicely. Another one was like spreading money throughout the team, which I haven't really done historically. So just want to try out a few different options, but Pickford as a keeper is consistent in all my drafts. I really like the 4.5 options. I really like Baish's teams for kind of save points and bonus points. Everton, really good fixtures. I think they're going to like grind out a few kind of clean sheets and not score many goals as well. Their attack isn't great, so I think Pickford can have a good chance of some bonus points there. Same goes for other people. Flecken at Brentford. Same goes for Steele at Brighton to a lesser extent, because he's in a good attacking team. Same applies for Johnston in kind of Crystal Palace, but I like the 4.5 keepers. I've got Areola in all my drafts, but he's a placeholder. Hopefully Turner from Arsenal, his move will be like complete to Nottingham Forest.
I tried to do it today, and it doesn't let you because I've already got 3 Arsenal players.
3 Arsenal players, isn't it? Yeah. I think you'd be a brave person to do that move until it was like secured in FPL. Imagine it just like blocked you from a decent Arsenal attacker. Like you'd be mad. Also consistent, Estupiñán's in all my teams, because I think he's nailed. He's a decent price point. decent attacking stats, not great, but decent attacking stats versus other Brighton defenders. Yeah, I'd be looking to move him out game week 3, but he's in for the game week 3 or 4, but he's in for the first couple. Gabriel from Arsenal's in all of my drafts, and I'd be starting him. Arsenal just have great fixtures, full stop. I want an Arsenal defender. He's a better price point than White, for example, and he has a hell of a goal threat. He's going to start every game, and like he's a threat at all set pieces. So his expected goal stats are probably one of the best of all the central defenders. Probably better than Saliba. I was thinking, so Saliba looked really great. He's a great player, and he looked great in the Community Shield. But I'm going to go with the stats and kind of like stay with Gabriel. Got John Stones again in all my drafts. Man City, I think, have probably got the best long-term fixtures up until that kind of period of game week 8, game week 9, when lots of people be targeting their first wild card. I'll be keeping an eye out for early team leaks for Man City, which I think there's rumours there that it kind of might leak. If Guardiola is kind of like starting, so they're like new defender they just brought in, I'll be going for him because he saved some money, 0.5 cheaper, and I think if he starts, that'd be a good indicator that he's like number one to kind of play that kind of left centre back, left back kind of position. But yeah, I've got Stones at the moment, and I think it's a toss up between Stones and Ruben Diaz. I think they probably got equal nailedness, to be honest. I kind of like Stones if he does play that kind of like inverted kind of midfielder kind of role. I think he's got a slightly better attacking threat, but like you could go Ruben Diaz. I mean, I'm not feeling that confident about Stones. He could just like not play, but that's the reason why like some of my drafts got like benches. My midfield, 4 of the midfielders same in all teams. So Mbomo, Bruno Fernandes, Rashford, and Saka. I think we've gone through all of them, like especially Rashford, Saka, and Fernandes. I feel like they're no-brainers given nailed nurse the teams they play for the fixtures. Mbomo, he's on pens now for kind of like Brentford. He historically scores pretty well. Infamously, gets lots of XG. He hits the post a lot as well. So yeah, I think he'll do well. And kind of Brentford have decent, not great, but decent attacking kind of fixtures. All my teams have Haaland, obviously, which is like a bit of a given, and he'll be my captain for the first 3-4 game weeks, probably every
38
week. My fifth midfield is where I started to differentiate, right? So one of my drafts, for those on like you can see YouTube, draft A has Eze as a 6.5 there. Draft B has Odegaard as an 8.5, and draft C, which is my current team, and my kind of I guess draft D, which I've just like mocked up this morning, it has Havertz there as well. So Eze, I like as a 6.5 over Matoma because I don't know. I think I'm a bit biased towards Matoma because like he burned me a little bit. But Eze, he's on pens. He'll play all minutes of every single game for Palace. They have okay fixtures for the long term. I think the downside there is like it's a Roy Hodgson attacking team. I'm not expecting a lot of goals there, but Eze could be interchangeable with like Mitoma on that one. Another one has Odegaard. So we spoke about him. So I think he's like nailed on to play every game. I like Arsenal's first fixtures, and I want 2 Arsenal attackers ideally for their first game against Forest, which I think could be a 4 or 5-0 based on Forest's pre-season. Obviously, with Turner going in as goalkeeper, it's probably inevitable he's going to have a blinder. But like, I think Arsenal will kind of destroy that. And Havertz, obviously, one of the drafts has him because it's a kind of price point thing. He's 7.5, so you're saving $1 million over Odegaard. I think there's going to be something I'll have to settle with myself over the next day or so. Will he start or will he not? I think he's got enough roots into that team that he's going to be starting at least with the same probability as kind of Martinelli, because the number 9 is available with Jesus not being there. I've mentioned I don't think Nketiah is going to be kind of starting anytime soon. Havertz also has the route in to be the left central attacking midfielder. So Arsenal could play a double pivot against stronger teams, but all their initial fixtures against weaker teams, really. So you could have Rice or Partey as a person playing defensive midfield, and then Odegaard and Havertz as like more attacking players, right? So
Yeah.
I think he's got interesting roots into that team, and I think he's got some explosive potential there. So yeah, I kind of like kind of Havertz kind of there. Then like the other kind of like differentiation in my teams is the strikers. So my draft day has kind of like João
Got my
Pedro
man.
started, and then Watkins
Yeah.
on the bench. So Watkins is playing Newcastle away, a really tough game initially. Pedro's got Luton starting, so really I bought in Pedro for that game week 1 because I think, hey, he could get a pen, he could get another goal, right? He could be pretty explosive there. My draft B is more simple. It's got Watkins, it's got Odegaard in midfield, we've got Watkins up front, and then you got Mbama from West Ham as just like a bench fodder, kind of like player. And then draft C, Dawn Havertz in the midfield it tries to be smart again, got kind of rotating forwards, but it's got João Pedro kind of like starting, and then Jackson from Chelsea as a striker, and then it's got also like Chilwell, and like everyone's got a 4.0 kind of defender. I've got Bayer in all the teams that are showing up on screen. I'm probably edging towards Baldock actually, just because Bayer, I think, misses a game. Does he miss game week 2?
Game week 2.
I believe, and like price points are just volatile, like first couple of weeks. So I think some people will be like, "Oh, my player's not playing next week. I'm going to transfer them out." So I think I'll just go Baldock because he has a good first fixture. Sheffield United have an okay first game, and like, he could get a clean sheet. He might go up in price, right? So I'm probably going to have Baldock as my 4.0 defender. But the team I've got now, which I think is probably, I might stay on it actually, is probably a variation of draft C. So Pickford, Stones, Gabriel, Estupinan, and Bomo, Fernandez, Havertz, which is a bit of the wild card, Saka, Rashford. Up from, rather than João Pedro starting, we've got Watkins, just because all the reasons we mentioned. He's a known thing, right? Why do I want to risk it? Like, Watkins is going to do well, even though he's got Newcastle away first game. He's got Everton next game, right? Do you know what I mean? And then we've got Haaland. Then the bench is Areola, who will be Turner if he makes that move. And Bama from West Ham, just because he's made some minutes, so he could, he's a 4.5 kind of defender striker who could get some minutes. Reece James.
Okay, after the captaincy armband.
Yeah, well, I got to go Reece James just because a couple of things. One, I just think he's a better player than Chilwell, and the only reason I would be putting Chilwell in my drafts is because I've seen other people put Chilwell in. Let's be honest. Like, I mean, I haven't seen him play preseason. I think James is a far better player. There is some rumors he could be on pens, like because Nkunku would have been on pens, but is kind of injured, so it's a bit of up in the air. Who's going to take the pens? It would be Havertz would have been kind of involved. It's all the Arsenal players. Jorginho would have been taking pens, right? So it's like, who the hell's going to take pens? So James could be taking pens. I just think he's a fun player. Really, I just enjoy kind of watching him. I think he's a better player than Chilwell. It's just like very clinical. So yeah, it could be a toss up between those. And then I got Baldock. So yeah, kind of big difference there is I've decided not to do not final draft, but the one I've got at the moment. Ignore the João Pedro hype. Just go with Watkins from kind of day one. Have James that rotation option for the first couple of game weeks. He may play over Stones game week 2, but he's in there for the good fixtures, really, kind of like from game week 3 onwards. And then Baldock is that kind of like defender. So yeah, messed you around a little bit with 4 drafts, but I think a lot of them. I think really I'm playing with just a few things around the edges. Is who my 5th midfielder is. Is it Eze? Is it Odegaard? Is it Havertz? Is it Martinelli potentially? And then who are my 2nd and 3rd strikers? Is the 3rd striker João Pedro, or is it a bench fodder 4.5? Is the 2nd kind of striker Jackson, or is it kind of Watkins? So I think I'm heading towards. I think I want to make that gamble and have it. So I think I feel like I should be quite quiet about it, but I think he could do. I think he could do well. And then
I mean, once I launch this video, mate, the 5 million viewers we get are gonna know.
Yeah, literally, kind of all kind of like 50 of the people are gonna guys can look at this will be considering it. But and like the bench option with, I don't like having a heavy bench, right? So that's why I got a 4.5 striker my current draft, and I've got a 4.0 defender. But yeah, I think Reece James being in there as well just gives a bit more certainty, and it means that it saves me a transfer as well for game week 3 as well, or game week 4. So that was the logic behind that. And yeah, Reece James could be Chilwell. I'll see how I'm feeling, but I just like him as a player. So yeah, but again, these have been like the thinking the last couple of days and whatnot. So very similar to your team, to be honest, right?
Yeah, I'm happy about the back line because those back three, particularly Stones, Gabriel, Estupiñán, exactly the same. Both United players, Saka, that second Arsenal attacker, is there. Haaland and Watkins are there. So like, not that, again, I said last week, the point in this isn't to just copy your team, because what's the point? That's just you playing a team and me copying it. That's
I mean, not what I'm after, I don't know what I'm going to land on either, right? I mean, it's a few options that this might think it. And like, you can't win FPL first game week, right? You can screw yourself up though, right? So I think we shouldn't be worried our teams look kind of similar. Like, I think we've all got like some good logic behind the reasoning, right? So there's a lot of safe bets. There's one or two kind of potential rotation risks, but for like all the right reasons. I think like it passes the sniff test, right? Like your team does, as do I think the drafts that I've made. So yeah, I mean, like for me it would be, for you it sounds like it's going to be about Onana. Like, do you want him or a cheaper goalkeeper, and are you going to like upgrade another player if you have that extra 0.5, or just keep it in the bank? And for me, it's going to be around the trust I put in Havertz. If I just feel like Havertz, he's not starting, I could go Odegaard, and then James or Chilwell could become Colwell from Chelsea as a 4.5 option. So there's small little things I can do, but I think Havertz is a fun pick, which
that should be the number one rule of FPL: fun, right? I know it doesn't feel like
it's the most fun, right? Having a shit game week is not fun. So I think if it's template or otherwise, getting points is the most fun, right?
Fair. It generally is, but no, appreciate you going through and explaining kind of where you've got your team from. And I know when we set this out, our plan was to maybe do 40 minutes an episode. Well, we're getting on to an hour and a half, but there's just a lot. I appreciate this is going into game week 1, so there's a lot of content. There's a lot of things to discuss. Hopefully, going forward, I won't take an hour and a half of your evening every week. I'm sure the other halves will get shouting.
It's a big week, yo. It's a big week. This is probably the time where you can talk about the most things, right? Next week it'll be like, okay, what's the planned moves? I can tell you my planned moves. Nothing. It'll be reflections on games and planned moves, right? So I think this is where there's like all the unknowns and whatnot, right? So I think
just
hopefully those timestamps will help like everyone navigate to what they want. But like I think good chat. But like I'm I feel like I'm talking myself out a few players there.
Well, if it's helped you to talk it through, even if I'm just an ear to listen, then I'm glad I'm supporting you as well. But for those watching, I've just brought our Twitter up. I'll be posting a locked team, hopefully not too far before the deadline. Obviously at FPL Corbs as well for Matt. I believe you've been doing that for a few seasons now. You're posting your locked team before the deadline, I believe.
Most weeks. Like I give people 2 minutes or so to go,
just so they can't copy
if they want.
I think more people will probably look at yours than look at mine, but mine will be hopefully going on. And then I've put the YouTube link on there as well. I appreciate you're probably watching this on YouTube, so you don't really need that. But it was mainly for those questions. As I say, if anybody wants to put some questions on for me to ask Matt next week, then we'll look to pick out the best 2 or 3, get Matt's thoughts on it, and hopefully he can help you as well as helping me. But Matt, once again, thank you for your time. Very much appreciate it. Next week we will meet, and game week 1 will be over and done. We'll either both be celebrating, or hopefully both be celebrating, unless Havertz bags a hat trick, because I can't see myself having Havertz for some reason. But it'd be a little bit more of a review of game week 1, look at game week 2, future planning, I might even throw a curveball or two at you because I will like to do that just to keep you on your toes. But I look forward to speaking to you then. Best of luck with the rest of this week, getting those final details sorted. And yeah, thank you once again for joining us.
Cool. Cheers, mate. No worries.
And for those listening and watching, we will hopefully have a video out for you next Wednesday or Thursday. Hopefully you've enjoyed this one. I'm going to turn into one of those YouTube wankers. If you do want to like the video and subscribe to the channel, that would be great. It does help us out. But thanks for listening regardless. And as I say, we'll be back next week. Best of luck with Game Week 1, getting your teams together. Wishing you to join the 100 club and celebrate with you next week. But once again, thanks for listening and speak to you soon.